Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Krishna Vadadi.
What an inspiration that was, last presentation. Good afternoon. It's my pleasure to introduce you, your next speaker, Dr. Andrew Ng. Dr. Andrew, as many of you know, was the chief scientist at Baidu. He was co-founder of Coursera as an adjunct professor at Stanford University. He's going to give us an amazing talk on artificial intelligence in the next few minutes. At Baidu, he led a team of 1,300 people that done many innovations in AI to their business units. And Andrew also led the development of Stanford's MOOC platform and taught a course on machine learning that had 100,000 students. Andrew also founded Google Brain Project. If you have not, it's a deep learning artificial neural network platform. And one of its main great accomplishments is they were able to train a neural network just to watch YouTube videos and detect high-level concepts such as cats without having to teach it what a cat is. He's co-authored hundreds of papers, or authored some of those and co-authored more than 100 papers, taught AI at Stanford for 10 years. His current mission is to kind of help AI researchers worldwide to take the drudgery out of human, such as self-driving or driving in traffic. More importantly, critically take AI into areas such as healthcare. Andrew is going to talk about why AI is the new electricity. It's going to be an amazing talk. Without further ado, here is Dr. Andrew. Thank you.
All right. Hi, everyone. So after Deborah and Michael invited me to speak, I spent some time thinking what I thought would be the most useful things for you to know about AI. And so what I thought I'd do is share with you some thoughts on what AI can do for you today. Chat a bit about why AI is suddenly taking off in a way that it hasn't for the last several decades. Do a deep dive into one piece of AI technology called neural networks or deep learning, and then chat a bit about ethical issues, jobs, and you. And before I get started, let me just to calibrate. I'm curious, if you raise your hand, how many of you, prior to this conference had heard of artificial intelligence before? Right, cool, awesome, almost everyone. How many of you, even prior to this conference, had heard of either neural networks or deep learning? Oh, wow, that's a lot of you. Okay, awesome. So I've been making this analogy that AI is the new electricity. About 100 years ago, we didn't have much, electricity wasn't a commonly available thing, but starting about 100 years ago, electricity started to revolutionize every major industry. Our transportation, agriculture, manufacturing, communications were all revolutionized by the rise of, by the electrification of the United States and other countries. And I think AI is similarly poised to revolutionize industry after industry, including education, but also many others. Despite all the hype and buzz and excitement about AI, it turns out that as of today, almost all the economic value created by AI, which is tremendous, almost all the economic value is due to one idea, and that's called supervised learning. But what that means is most of AI today is learning what I'm going to call input to response mappings. So as an example, maybe you want a piece of AI to input a piece of email and tell you, is this spam or not? 0 or 1, right? So that's a spam filter. Or maybe you want to input an image and have it tell you, what object is this? And maybe there are 1,000 objects you track. Is this a cat? Is it a dog? Is it your friend? So maybe I'll put a number from 1 to 1,000. That's object recognition, or computer vision object recognition. Or maybe you wanted to input an audio clip and have it output the transcript. That's speech recognition. And actually today, Google and Baidu, right, both companies where I've led AI teams, over 10% of the, well over 10% of the search traffic through mobile comes through voice. So, really growing adoption of speech recognition. or input an English sentence and output a French sentence. That's machine translation. Or input an image. If you have a camera mounted facing outside in a car, input an image and your radar returns and output the position of other cars. And this is a key component of today's self-driving cars, right? Input a picture and the radar, tell you where the cars are around you. So the simple idea, learning input to response mappings, we call the input A and call the response B. But learning these A to B mappings, by fitting this in clever ways in different products or different business processes, this is transforming multiple industries. Probably the single most lucrative application of this is inputting some information about the user and an ad. That's A, and try to predict will the user click on this ad or not. This is used to power advertising and show you the most relevant ads when you visit various web properties, and this might be the single most lucrative application of AI today. And all this is, and this idea of learning input to response mappings is called supervised learning, right? It's the technical term. And you know, what can supervised learning do, right? Maybe here's one rule of thumb that might help. You know, anything that a typical person, that say a typical human can do with less than a second of thought, right? We can probably now or we can probably either now or the near future automate, right, using AI. And you know, maybe it was leading Baidu's AI group. I've stepped away from a role there now. A lot of product managers are asking me, well, what can we do with AI? And I found that this is a useful rule of thumb to give them. So I actually had a lot of product managers running around looking for tasks that they themselves could do in less than a second, and trying to automate those actually create a lot of value. And it turns out that a lot of business processes are taking a lot of 1 second tasks or sub 1 second tasks and stringing them together. So this could be a useful rule for some of you to spot automation opportunities as well. And I deliberately started off with some non-education examples, with some education examples, you know, input a quiz answer, right? And output a grade, you know, maybe 0 to 100 or something. Or 0 or 1, is it correct or not? Or input an audio clip and output, you know, was this pronounced correctly? Right? Yesterday, I talked to the CEO of Liu Lishuo, a company out of China, and in the US, there's Elza. Various companies using this to help people learn language. We'll output a facial picture, right? And tell you, is this the correct person? Right? So again, this is taking off faster in China than the United States, but using a picture of your face to verify the identity of a test taker, you know, is also increasingly done using this type of learning A to B mapping, using supervised learning. Now, the idea of supervised learning has been around for many, many decades, and depending on how broadly you want to interpret A to B mappings and supervised learning may be around for several centuries. But AI has been taking off today in a way that feels different than their previous several decades. So why is AI suddenly taking off today? When friends ask me that picture, there's a picture I draw to explain to them. And I would say, if you remember just one thing from this presentation, maybe just remember this picture I'm about to draw. I would say that the primary reason that AI is taking off is scale. And let me explain that with a picture. So if on the horizontal axis, I plot the amount of data you have for a problem. And on the vertical axis, we plot the performance. Right? It turns out that for most traditional AI algorithms, traditional learning algorithms, the performance maybe kind of goes like this. Right? Some of the older generations of AI algorithms. And it was only in the last several years, you know, maybe starting about 10 years ago, and then it really took off starting about 5 years ago, we started to build neural networks. I'll say what a neural network is in a second, so that you build a, you know, small neural network, its performance maybe looks like that. If you build a medium-sized neural network, and I'm using NN to abbreviate neural network, then its performance gets a little bit better. And if you build a very large neural network, that the performance kind of looks like it keeps going up and up and up. And so what this means is that for modern AI to work really well, to be really up here in the performance, first you need a very large neural network. This is why I decided to build the Google Brain team. I thought I could use Google's cloud to build really large neural networks. And then more recently, building HPC high-performance computers, the supercomputers that build really, really large neural networks. But so you need a really large neural network and a lot of data if you want to build the most effective neural networks. And I would say that over the last decade, a lot of a society, because of the digitization of society, right? Digital activities on your cell phone or your laptop leave a digital trace. So over the last really 20 years, we've been creating more and more data, but it's only in the last maybe 5 years that our ability to exploit this data has accelerated with really scaling up these neural networks. Now, what is a neural network? And when I say data, what type of data do I really mean? It turns out that supervised learning has one weakness, kind of one Achilles heel, which is that, as kind of implied by the picture on the left, it needs a lot of data. And what I mean is that it needs a lot of data with both A and B, with both the input you want and the response that you want. And what a neural network does, well, so what is a neural network? And I think, because there's been so much mystique, so much hype about AI, I thought I'd actually do a unusually deep dive on what is a neural network, so that if someone asks you, what is AI hype, that you can actually give them a concise answer about what is a neural network and what it can do and what it cannot do. But what is a neural network? Well, let's take the simplest supervised learning problem of predicting housing prices. Let's say on the x-axis, I tell you the size of a house in square feet, and on the vertical axis, I tell you the price of a house, right? So, you might have a data set that looks like this, where bigger houses tend to be more expensive. And so you might fit a straight line to this, or you might say, well, prices can never be negative, so, you fit like a function that looks like this. So this is a very simple neural network, right? And you draw this neural network as saying that you're gonna build a neural network. Neural networks make a loose analogy to the human brain, right? But so you input the size of a house and output the price, and this little circle is an abstract diagram for a single, simulated neuron, if you will. So this is like the simplest possible neural network. It turns out that this neural network that's creating so much value, product value, user value, economic value, is taking this single neuron as if it was a small Lego brick, and taking a lot of these Lego bricks and stacking them up to build much bigger neural networks. So for example, let's say you want to predict the size of the price of a house, and you know the size of the house as well as the number of bedrooms. Then you might say, well, knowing the size and the number of bedrooms, that really tells me, what's the family size, right, that can live in this house. And with the zip code, tells me, how walkable is this neighborhood, right? And if I know, the wealth of the area, well, since this is ASU GSV, let's have something about schools, I guess, something about school quality. And then it's really, when people are buying a house, they care a lot about, can this fit your family? Is it walkable? What's the school quality? And these things together predict the price of a house, okay? So that's it. That's a neural network for predicting the price of a house. And a lot of the magic of a neural network is that given enough data about these inputs, that's A, and given enough data about prices, it can figure out this A to B mapping very, very accurately, way more than we could do 5 years ago. And this is working much better than before. And one technical detail, part of the magic of the neural network was that I describe neural networks as you having to go in and figure out the family size, walkability, and school quality are the most important traits. Part of the magic of a neural network is if you give it enough data about A and B, it will figure this out. It will figure out all of these things by itself, and you don't need to be the one to figure out what are the things it needs to model. And whereas I've drawn a relatively small neural network there, today we routinely have neural networks with tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of those simulated neurons. And this has been incredibly effective at learning to do a wide variety of tasks. So where are we in education? I've seen AI enter a lot of industries. A very common pattern is that first comes the IT transformation, where more and more things become digital, and that creates data. And then first comes the IT wave, the IT transformation, and then comes the AI transformation, because the IT transformation creates all the digital data that AI can then come and eat to create value. So some industries have been ahead of education. For example, online commerce, selling stuff online, that just starts off online, or online advertising, that just has so much data online that AI is deeply embedded. I think education, thanks to a lot of work of many of you, education is increasingly digital, and we are now at a phase where there is enough data, enough of it is in the digital realm, that there are a lot of opportunities for you to use AI to improve learners' experience or drive better economics or whatever your goals are. And to give another example, I think that healthcare is another domain that AI is transforming with the Affordable Care Act, creating a lot more digital data, electronic health records, digitalization of medical imaging, and I think a lot of it's often the IT wave first and then the AI wave, right? It's a common pattern. The AI transformation of companies and organizations is also creating new strategies. So let me give an example. This is what I call the virtuous circle of AI, right? But a very common pattern for a lot of products is, if you have a good product, right? Having a good product means that you can acquire a lot of users. A lot of people will use your product. Having a lot of users allows you to generate or to collect more data, and this data can be used via AI or supervised learning or some other type of AI to keep improving your product, and this creates a positive feedback loop. And so this is one of the reasons why a lot of AI companies, a lot of AI businesses are able to keep making their products better and better because of this positive feedback loop. And this is also one of the strategies for building a defensible business, right? And so actually, when I launch AI products, we've gone through very sophisticated planning exercises to think through data acquisition. And I've actually sometimes launched products where the main goal is just to acquire data. So the strategies for data acquisition are increasingly sophisticated. Before I wrap up, I just want to mention something about ethics. The issue of ethical AI comes up a lot. So I guess maybe Elon Musk most famously said that AI is summoning the demon. And I think there's a little bit of hype about will AI take over the world, kill people. My late grandmother, I think my grandmother loved me, but my late grandmother, I think she always secretly wondered if I was on the wrong side of the human versus machine coming battles or something. But I think that in terms of fears about evil AI killer robots, I think that worrying about AI evil killer robots today is a lot like worrying about overpopulation on the planet Mars. I think that I hope that hundreds of years from now we'll have colonized the planet Mars and maybe overpopulated. Maybe Mars will be polluted and be all these children dying of pollution. And you could say, Andrew, don't you care about all these poor kids dying of Mars? And I would say we haven't even landed on the planet yet. And I think that none of us see a clear path to the creation of evil AI killer robots. And I think that hype is actually quite unhealthy. Because almost all the value of AI today is learning A to B mappings, right? These tasks a human can do in under a second, and humans can do so much more. Having said that, I do think that in terms of ethics, there is a serious jobs displacement issue. For technical reasons, AI engineers and scientists are much better at automating things that people can do than automating things that people cannot do. So when you think of the near-term value of AI, don't think sentience, instead think automation on steroids. And for example, I've worked on several autonomous driving teams, self-driving cars. My wife is actually co-founder of Drive.ai. But autonomous cars are coming, and maybe 3.5 million truck drivers in the United States, jobs will be at risk. Or call center operators. I've led teams that went into call centers. I've interviewed call center operators with people on the phones. And as an AI insider, I know that I can automate a large fraction of their jobs. So these millions of people in the United States and in many other countries working on call centers, what will happen to their jobs? And just this, and I've spoken with several chatbot organizations, right, just at GSV as well. And this will affect blue collar and white collar workers, radiologists. Right? If you have a son or daughter graduating from med school, maybe think of doing radiology. Honestly, I think I wouldn't plan for a 4-year career in radiology. I think a 5-year or 10-year career in radiology, that could work, but a 40-year career, I just don't see it, frankly. A lot of people don't see what's coming, the AI impact of automation on their jobs. There have been a lot of reports on the jobs issue. Depending on who you ask, maybe 30% to 50% of jobs, right, might be at risk over the next, depending on which report you read, 15, 20, 25 years. But the flip side of this is if you take 100 minus this, maybe 70 to 50%, 100 minus this, right, of jobs may not be at significant risk. So I think that we've talked a lot about the skill gap issue. And AI will accelerate this. As an AI insider, I see so many jobs that squared in crosshairs of various AI teams. And it's already very clear that automation and AI will create tremendous wealth, will create tremendous value. But I think that if all of us want to create, if all of us want to create not just a wealthier society, but also a fairer society, then I think it's incumbent on all of us, on all of you, education specialists, to figure out how to deliver education to all the people that need it so that these people whose jobs are displaced can maybe take up some of these other jobs that are not yet at significant risk. If you're in government, think about basic income or conditional basic income where you pay people to study. And if you're in education or university, think about how we could do something to help all these people so that everyone can continue to have a chance at a livelihood. So thank you all very much.